everyone, and welcome to Haarlem, Netherlands, and also to the Hospitality Marketing Show. My name is Longray. Thank you so much for joining us. For those that keep loyal and vigilant with watching our show each week, as we have been for what's going into our 11th year here shortly, every week, and we have been exactly to this place before. We love this place. It's been a couple years since we've been here, and we were able to get it back to spend some time here while we're in Harlem. And so the background is similar to something that you may have seen 2 years ago. For all of those that I know are dedicated to watching, and you say, "Oh yeah, I know that one." Anyways, even if you hadn't been, it's great to have you join us, and also to be broadcasting from here as we travel, as we do each year. Lots of things going on. This week's show is going to be geekish in some ways. We've had a lot of dialogue between the Hospitality Marketing Club, which is a peer level group that we keep together. You can join it if you're a hospitality marketer. Just go to hospitalitymarketing.club, just email in, and we send you a quiz and validate that you are indeed a hospitality marketer, not somebody that is on the outside of the conversation, but somebody that does this stuff every day. And it's part of their responsibilities. Uh, AI it's gone well beyond a buzzword. It's not just a buzzword, it's a functionality of our world. We've had many shows talk about variations of how AI has been propagated into our marketing strategies, into our very industry, and our very life culture. Um, and a lot of people, they're very surface level as to their AI engagements. They tend to think of AI still from a chat GTP, long language model, such as that, or Claude. Maybe they get a little bit more advanced. They found out there's Claude, there's Llama. Of course, Gemini's out there and it keeps advancing what it has. And then Meta's definitely become stronger into the space with its Llama engagement. Um, and there's all these different AIs, and when it says how can AI be different? Well, AIs are different as to how they approach data and how they use and quantify their responses to the user experience. Some are very much more in tune with a type of voice or personalization to it or depth of how they respond. Others are more factual and functional, especially on the research AIs. They're much more of a bullet point and structured response. That's a very superficial way of describing some of the variances. What really has exploded in dialogue is what's called AI agents. And those are nascent little functionalities where an AI agent is specific to a task. It will go do something specifically, like it will go and check the weather, it will go and check the traffic, it will go and check events. And you quantify what you wanted to do with that data, where to go, how to source it, whether you define the sourcing yourself or whether you quantify the data that it uses for that sourcing. There's lots of ways. One is to go fetch on the internet. The other one is here's a file, go look at it always. These are very specific to tasks, these AI agents that do these things. And you can have the ability to use multiple AI agents, but they need to talk to each other. And I mean, literally talk to each other. They need to understand what each of them do when they're asked to be used. And this is where we're going to have our conversation start today, because today's conversation is a lot about acronyms. Uh, Here's the title: MCPs, APIs, RAGs, AIs, and marketing. Or as, but if you're a Friends fan of the show Friends, can I be wearing any more clothes? Can I have any more acronyms? Um, these are all viable to a function, and we're going to talk a little bit about each one of them. Not get into the really nitty gritty of creating and using them, as it is what they're used for and why they're becoming so prominent in what we're doing. So, as I said, we have been using AI, or most people's understanding of AI is relatively superficial. I'll get people asking me like, "Oh, isn't this so cute that somebody made a Simpsons rendition of somebody, a caricature of it, or a Pixar rendition of my dog, or us as a couple, or what have you." Um, and these are great, interestingly fun things to do. Make a picture of, or summarize this email, or summarize this video, and they can be helpful time saving that way, especially if you have them as a pre-function, like hit a button and it'll do it for you. Having to type the question or the prompt each time really doesn't save me that much time compared to just saying, you hit this button and do this. And that's an AI agent. That's a functional tool. And coming into the secondary software market, you're getting just a floodgate of people that are creating uniquely usable AI agents. You'll see a lot of AI agents talking about your SEO, your SEM, your blog content, your website content. and they provide certain function services, which are really more machine learning functions with AI research capabilities. It still goes through the I need it to be displayed this certain way. It has to have, this certain window for this data. This pie chart has to be over here. It's very still structured data response, but it uses AI agents to go search for and find certain aspects of data. That's a very simple way AI is being done, and a lot of companies are trying so hard to embrace AI, but they don't know what it means to take in AI into a daily function. So, one of my dear friends, Tim Welsh, and his team are working on a very unique approach to AI, and that is creating an answer to the age-old question that all of us that operate hotels or groups of hotels or businesses in general ask every day when we wake up. What do I need to know? Sounds like a simple question, but that question's answer changes every day. And it changes according to prioritizations of what's happening that day and what has happened since the last time you asked that question. And so you have to draw in a lot of different sources. We have historically tried to answer that question with a floodgate, seems to be a word for me today, of reports. Here's my report on our performance of our ad campaigns. Here's my report on our SEO campaigns, our website campaigns, our occupancy campaigns. Here's my revenue performance report from my revenue performance software, my occupancy, my ADRs, my revenue for the day, my pace of revenue for the month, um, my channels of production to produce this revenue, so forth. Here's my P&L report. And literally, to answer the question, what do I need to know today? We have to look at all of them at any one time to then see what the reports are telling us to now get a list, a shorter list of out of all these reports, each of the reports has a certain number of standout features. Our performance in paid is down this much, so there might be a concern factor there. Our revenue performance might be up for inventory type, but down for another one. That might be an action to perform over there. And we then prioritize a understanding of the reports, and then we prioritize that priority as to what's the most important things out of that list that are more crucial to take care of immediately versus those that can be taken care of less than immediately, and those things that need to be approached in a little bit longer stretch or what can make an impact. We all have our priorities of how we prioritize. How can I make an impact with it now? Does a decision needs to be now, or is this something they need to be aware of in the future tense? And I need to spend time in the future tense with it. Either way, you approach those projects from those priorities. And that's usually how we tackle our prioritization of what we see on a daily basis that we're responsible for, our job and responsibility. AI can help with that, but you have to trust the model to know what it can do. There might be an AI that will look at your ad performance, and based on what you've structured it to pay attention to, it will automatically highlight the variances that need your consideration. So we can immediately refine the report by just using an AI agent that quantifies what's considered noticeable. Think of it if you've ever run a hotel from a GM's perspective or executive level perspective, that every month when you had to do your P&L review, anything with a 4% variance as to cost versus actuals had to be explained in a recap of, well, this is why that happened. Good or bad, you had to explain why the variance existed. Think of that you're making an AI model that does that. Now, it sounds wonderful to do, but ask anybody, most people, how do you do that? How do you make that AI model do that? So you can go into your chat GPT or whatever you're using, Gemini or whatever, and type, look at the attached report and tell me anything that's important to see. It's going to say, well, what's important? And you start going through this cascading refinement of a prompt to try to identify what it is that you're wanting to look for based on what you're telling it to look at. And even if you get it down where it finally gives you an answer that you already knew, because that's what you're trying to create questions to get to, and you're trying to teach it, it changes the next day because maybe that variance isn't the same variance the next day. So it's not going to come under the consideration of being added to a report that the AI would generate. So you're creating one-off solutions and it doesn't help. You're just changing how you're using the data. And oftentimes, like any teaching model, the extra time to teach takes away from the time to do. And it's hard when you don't have enough time to do already. So you need to create a method of prioritization that understands it regardless of whether the values that it's considering changes and that those priorities come from it. So you have to create an AI model for that. Let's say you are successful. You have created a framework that you go in and take this data and you put it into a source, you put it into a file, and you tell the AI, I want you to go look at this file, and I want you to tell me based on this long frame prompt what's important. And you manually do that, and it comes back with some sort of answer. Great. That's a very manual process. You want to automate that. You want it to be done for you. So you have to create things that do that. And this is where we get into the acronyms I talked about at the very beginning, the MCPs, the APIs, the RAGs, which are all these things. So let's start with the more simpler, more familiar, oldest one. And that is APIs, application program interfaces. APIs have been around for quite a while. And APIs are basically a program that is connected to your data or your software that says, this is what we call this. This is a date. This is a revenue number. This is an occupancy. This is an ADR, whatever we identify the data as. And we're going to allow through the API software that if you ask for it, okay, this is the list of what we're offering. If you ask for it, we'll put it into this format for you. And the API would produce these data points. It'll look at what you allow it to connect to, and it will allow you to choose the fields, the data that it's connected to show. And it's also selective as to what we allow or don't allow it to see. So that if you have the API key, which is the key literally to unlock the door to get to this data, you can use another program that you have to get these data sources and identify what they are based on how the program that they're taking from, say it is, and use it the way it identifies it. So if your date over here has the month before the day before the year, and your other program over here has the day before the month before the year, it knows to make the change that that date is actually this month, even though the numbers may not be in the same sequence. That kind of comparative information. Now, this has been used a lot, and you've probably heard of other softwares and other ways that people have piped things together. Zapier, Pabbly are good platforms that talk about how you can take one program over here that doesn't have a connection to the other program and identify data sources via API and allow it to talk to each other and to act on what it gets from the information. There's more to it than just the API connection, but in general, that's the core source value of what APIs do, is they allow a common interface language of data that's been selected. Here's the downfall with the API. If you change data in the sense of how you identify the data in certain fields, or if there's other data that you've added, you have to manually go in and update the API to show that availability, which also means on the other side, the software that's using it has to change its knowledge that there's new data types available and what it now can use it for. So it's a very manual process. If this changes, that has to change, or it doesn't get the value of it. If this changes and it re-identifies it not the way it was told before, then this side over here loses the capability of using it. So the APIs have a very manual interface function value that has to be done for them to be effective and working. So APIs is the earliest, oldest. And from that, you now have to move into how AI works. Now, APIs are what we grew from. This is my date, this is my revenue field, this is my occupancy field, this is my ADR field, whatever. APIs can know that that's occupancy because they can see, can read the word, so to speak, and it can go to a site and see what these things are. Now, to do AI, the way we're describing, say, making a report, is we have to tell it where to go look. Now, AIs are wonderful in the sense that they are incredibly capable, but very naive as to exactly what it is you want them to do. You have to be very explicit about what you want them to do. So say, for instance, you want them to look at your GA4 account. Well, one, just like you, it needs to have access to it. Now, depending upon how you have your security configured and so forth, you may not be able to allow an autonomous AI to go into your GA4 account or have access to it. Or you may. You can connect your ability to have your AI connect to your GA4. Then you can tell it, hey, in a prompt, go look at this report, okay, and tell me what the best-selling room type I have. And it would tell you that pretty simply by just looking at GA4, it'd be saying your best-selling room type for this day is such and such. You'd have to say this day or that past week or that past month. You have to identify what you want it to do. That's all well and good, but it still is only shortcutting you having to do it by having you to tell it to do it. Still not a huge time-saving help for that. And certainly not adding towards the ultimate question, what do I need to worry about today? Or what do I need to focus on? Okay. So other functionalities are beginning to come into play for AI. The first one, which is really other than AI agents, which are specific task modules of AI, things that the AI specifically does, and it gets made as a model. Think of it as a little flow chart that says, when you do this, this is what you do with it, this is where it goes, and this is what you name it. Something very simple. 3 steps basically. And that's a little AI agent. And then you identify the AI agent. And then another AI agent gets made for doing something else. What makes Model Context Protocol, MCP, so incredibly powerful is that it talks between AI agents. And it does so not like an API that says, what are the data sources that I can use by them being identified, but it actually has what's called dynamic interface, dynamic self-learning, self-discovery, excuse me, dynamic self-discovery. And what this does is an API, an MCP can go over Model Context Protocol agent, can go over and look at an AI agent and say, what do you do? And it can dialogue from that AI agent what the AI agent has as resource. It doesn't have to be identified individually by item, by data field, as it has to be more about the complexity of what the AI agent can do. So because of that, you now have an MCP, Model Context Protocol, that can talk to several AI agents and understand what all of them do as it's needed to be done. So in other words, if you were to ask your Model Context Protocol AI agent, I want to understand the value relationship between these two things of data, and you've connected your MCP to a variety of AI agents that you've created, it can find, if there is one available, an AI agent that creates that functionality that it needs to provide the answer that you're asking of it. So Model Context Protocol is basically, it's an open standard to allow the communication between AI models and external tools. So this is the other value, the really huge value that MCPs provide. In addition to setting it up very similar to what an API protocol would be, in the sense of, here's my data sources and here's my understanding of your data sources, and tying the individual data sources together through an API. That's pretty generic for what we just talked about as AI agents talking to AI agents, minus the self-discovery, which is the ability to understand quickly what the AI agent does. But it's still limited into the singular functionalities of the AI agents. Here, MCP can also go out and find external and communicate with external resources. That same dynamic self-discovery of another AI agent can also be used in the discovery of external data sources. Think of it as a website that has a lot of information on it. The MCP can go and it can look at and understand what is available on that website, and through its own need of looking at that website, determine what it wants to take from that website in its process of creating an answer for the user experience. So it allows for a dynamic means to find external data. It can look at a picture, it can look at a video, it can look at text, it can listen to and transcribe audio, it can listen to other languages, it can read other languages. It finds whatever modality it needs. It can go into structured data, weather charts and calculations and formulas and functions. It can do whatever it is that needs to get done dynamically to find the data that it needs to use in its user experience interface requirement. That's the power of a model context protocol. The last acronym that we have in reference to is RAG, or RAG, which is Retrieval Augmentation Generation. What this does, it's a type of AI framework that combines the strength of a large language model, okay, LLMs, kind of like ChatGPTs, Llamas, Claudes, things like this, with unique retrieval information retrieval techniques. What it does is a retrieval augmentation generation is once a model context protocol is created and you have the formation of being able to retrieve data from sources that you want or tell it the accesses that it has available to retrieve data, it then needs a way to know the difference between what it retrieved and then what has changed, whether that has changed what it's retrieved to be usable. That constant updating variance is really, like we talked about, making a simple prompt to say, look at this data set and tell me this variance, and then have it identify how it compares to a variance the day before, requires a very long and lengthy prompt to identify what you're looking at, identify what you want it to be compared to, and identify the value of the differences as to being whether it reached a threshold to actually being reported on. It's a very long prompt you have to create. In this world of a RAG, you can go over and say, hey, look, here's your data sources that you're pulling from and have the ability to. And the data sources can also shift, which is really impressive to think that it's not always just the same website, whether the website changed, but rather that website may not be as valuable as another website this day compared to yesterday. And so it can change its sources. And what you're making it do is decide between all of the variations of the data that it's pulling, has something changed in a way that needs to meet the criteria of the reporting? That retrieval augmentation generation is a definable set of ways of communicating. You can say, I don't want to look at the data if it doesn't hit this level of change, or any change is required to show. These extreme isms as to how you define what the RAG will demonstrate is the real value of it being dynamic in its value proposition of being trusted as saying, when I tell you there's something important for you to consider on the recap, it's because not just of the singular data you told me to look at, but at the scope of data you've made available to me, this variance meets the requirement that you identified with me as a reason to tell you this. That's why a RAG, or retrieval augmentation generation, is such a critical component to the real amped usage of what AI can produce for you. So, topic of the day was the MCPs, APIs, RAGs, and AIs, which we've been discussing throughout the three acronyms. But how does it relate to marketing? Well, here's the beauty of this. Going back to the original concept of what do I need to worry about today, or what do I need to do today, or um, that single question we all try to answer each day when we wake up about running operations. If you broaden the scope of what it is that you are responsible for, marketing performance, ad campaign performance, revenue generation performance, cost reductions, variations on audiences, whatever it is that is a metric KPI within your organization, creating an API interface, an MCP, okay, where you have assigned static data sources, okay, data sheets that you pull and extract and put into a format it reads, dynamic sources from sites or places that it changes based upon source of use and so forth. And you've applied RAGs to them as to how it updates that data to create relevance to answering those questions. What you end up getting is what developing wise is a reporting process that is prioritizing your priorities in such a way that it knows how you want them to be racked and stacked for your priority selection. And from that, you can start your day with a number one, number two, number three, number four, and so on, progression of what needs to get done, or at least an awareness of what things will be discussed or things that you need to discuss with others. The real linchpin flip of this is we're aspiring to have this built in a way that does answer that singular kind of question in a relevant way, useful way for each person that asks that question. They're going to get a different answer based upon whom they are that's asking it. But the real value proposition is when you're going to begin to create what that reporting process does from from what it did to report, okay, to a prescriptive response. Meaning, here's the things that are of prioritization, but also here are the things most eminently capable to do in relationship to those prioritizations from what it knows needs to get done. So you're teaching the AI not just to tell you what's happening, but teaching the AI what to do with what it's telling you needs to happen to also what you should be doing about it. That prescriptive transition is really the holy grail of the process, because now you're going beyond gathering these reports to get an awareness of what's going on, to gathering these reports or gathering the data so that the information is prioritized for you, so that you're aware of what is going on, to now prioritizing the data in a way that collectively allows you to be told what you could do about it. It's still your choice to be made, but at least you now have some recommendations of modifiers that, yes, your team will work with you and collaborate with you, and yes, your team will be the ones that functionally distribute what it is that you're telling them to do. But now you have a model that's beginning to share with you, because of its awareness of all the active data that's associated with all the moving pieces, as it were, to what it's reporting for you for. Also, to know what leverages can change to improve the criteria that you've told it wants to maintain. That prescriptive modeling still a little bit out there. But the idea that we can create a reporting modeling that answers forever the question, what do I need to worry about today? Or what do I need to do today? um, and have that answer prioritized and categorized, that all things that you're responsible have a reflective response of data associated with it, and that there is some completeness to it, that you don't think, well, that's great, but that's only the two things I know that it works, but I have 10 other things that I don't have connected to. Having it connected in such a way that all of those things, when they give you the right information, are completely prioritized to how you need to approach them, or at least giving you some criteria as to what you should consider to be the first and second and third, four steps kind of stuff that you do. So, little techie geeky on some of the acronyms today, a little bit more as to how, granularity as to AI functionalities, and that it's not just asking a question and getting the magic genie in the bottle answer. It's a progressive discussion. For those that remember from us being here 2 years ago, till now, this past year, talking about AI and what it does, we talked about prescriptive modeling, we talked about progressive prompting, we've talked about ways to facilitate going from a zero option of the AI not having anything to know what you're doing, to a clarity of what it is you're asking it and the answer that you want from it. And it's a progression of refinements. Now look at that from your model context protocols, your MCPs. Look at that from your RAGs, your retrieval augmentation generations, as a progression of identifying individual agent functionalities, collectively making those available to an MCP to know what resources it can use and how it gathers its data that you need. Identify the MPC NCP's model as to what you're trying to derive for its resultant, and then use your retrieval augmentation RAG formatting to constantly make sure that the data that it is using isn't based on static non-return data, but rather constantly dynamic prioritized data, so that the resultant is always based on the refinement of up-to-date information and its contrasts and variances. So there we go. Thank you so very much for your time today. And for all those that watch us live around the world and 209 countries that we broadcast, thank you so much for always keeping up with us on that. And for those that remember that we were here a couple years ago, thank you so much for that. Um, Always catch us on our simulcast, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and of course our TV channel, Hospitality Channel. You can get it on your smart TV. Just look for Hospitality Channel. The show's always on the free side. There's a paid gateway for additional content on the other side. If you have any questions, answers, responses, feedback, insights, or whatever, I answer each and every email when it comes to both the TV show, this show, and for the podcast. We have a radio station, hospitalityradio.com. You can reach me at Lauren at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. I answer all those emails. If you want to do an audio question to me, you can go to hdm.news/talkback and answer the question I give, or just your audio answer that you would like to give me, and I'll reply. I think we're missing any other platforms. Oh, if you want to watch any of our reruns of our shows based on data broadcast, hosts, and or topic, you can go to hospitalitychannel.tv. That's our I Love Lucy rerun show platform. If you want to see our app, we Hospitality Channel app, it's connected to our TV channel. You can look at that on Apple, Google Play or Apple Store. Sorry, either one of those. and catch the app there. And you also catch the show from that as well. And of course, hospitalityradio.com and hospitalitymarketing.club for peer group relationships. So my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you all.